go. With that, with all the
How you doing today? Yes. That's all right. I was hoping the rain was going to keep people from coming in, but still not. Yeah, that light is real. Either that or the lights went out in the emergency lights. Because it's right there. Those look like the emergency lights. Yeah. No, right now mine could get healed. I want to be good. I get me a new car. It won't hurt my feelings. Yeah, it when I came in, it did look really nasty. I was gonna sit out in the car because I got here about 10 till. I said, well, I'll sit out in the car till about 5. And as I was sitting in there, it started coming down heavier and heavier. I said, let me get on in here. Yeah, I said, let me get on in here while I can. I just hope my phone don't go off during the meeting for emergency broadcast. There's a tornado watch. No, it's a watch. Well, it's a warning now. Okay. What's that light? The light's so bright. Okay. Okay, I see the tornado warning for Lexington until 5:15. Yeah. We must be pulling up the same one. WIS? Yeah. First time I seen the police up here. Security up here. Well, they like their names. parade on Sunday tonight for the girls. I watched the last, pretty much the last half. You got wet.
Oh yeah.
You got really wet.
I came in at the wrong time. How you doing?
I'm fine. How about you? But no, it's not as price it was. It's not as price it was.
Golly.
Yeah. Okay, that's why it's bright. Brighter than on. Yeah, it's better.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Right there. Me, I'm just me.
Not yet, but yeah. We still got about 10 minutes, so. But I was determined I was not going to be the one this time. Last time, it was just a total accident. Yeah, but last time they had postponed because it wasn't enough people. Yeah, both of them. I forgot, and then I looked at if I had gotten a message, and then like at 8 o'clock, she gone. And then I got the email the next day. Yeah. I didn't eat lunch. I was going to get it. It's bad for the whole week. So I grabbed some salad real quick.
I just left all my crap in the car. I was like, man,
I
be so
don't know. I don't know. I know. They will be here. Oh, I forgot it.
yeah.
You're like, man, what did what did I volunteer for?
Which one? Yeah, that's the way it goes.
Yep.
Site development projects I've done throughout the years, I've had to be on the speaking end, and
Oh, both of them. I know.
I've had people,
I know.
screaming at me, and
I know.
Same
calling me
thing.
a liar, calling me the devil.
One of the funniest ones that we ever. Neil Keenan was building a Goodyear up in Northeast Columbia. Actually, I tell you what, it was a Hobby Lobby. They were trying to get rezoned for up in Two Knots Road. And he went into the zone. He went into the zone hearing. And he had his suit on, but he had a pink tie on.
Oh yeah.
And this guy gets up.
There's one up here.
I was in the airport with some folks who were UFC fans who were out there,
and they took their. Well, you're gonna probably pay for your flight.
Yeah, exactly. They pay for something.
I guess it's.
Make sure.
What time is it tonight? Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Exactly.
Yeah, they tend to add a few more commercials into for the Final Four, or the whole tournament, really.
25 come early.
I did it for a couple months, about a year or so, yeah. I'm still on the email. So I heard Dale talking about Go.
Right, there's 10.
I know there's that in the, one of the many acronyms in there. I started one summer and it started getting cold.
Yeah.
You want to read any of this?
I already looked at all of them. I'll pass them down there. Is this what you sent earlier? Sense Cool. Yeah, I actually read them all. I was reading them today. These are from.
Good afternoon. We will call to order the April 2017 City of Columbia Planning Commission meeting. We'd like to welcome all Planning Commission members, all staff, and all guests. I would like to ask now that everyone turn their cell phones and PDAs to the silent or vibrate mode. The administrator will now proceed with the roll call.
Mr. Cohn,
Here.
Mr. Stigemeyer,
Here.
Ms. Hartz,
Here.
Mr. Taylor,
Here.
Mr. Waits,
Here.
Mr. Tupper,
Here.
and Mr. Frost.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to give you a brief review of the meeting format. Applicants with requests before the Planning Commission are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. This time limit does not include any questions asked by Planning Commission or staff regarding requests. Members of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns in intervals of 2 minutes. The administrator has a timer and will make presenters aware of when their time has expired. The Planning Commission reserves the right to amend these procedures on a case-by-case basis. The consent agenda. The Planning Commission uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion or vote. Examples of such items include approval of site plans, annexations, and street names. If a member of the Planning Commission or the general public would like to discuss an item on the consent agenda, that item is removed from the consent agenda and considered during the meeting. The Planning Commission then approves the remaining consent agenda items. The administrator will now read the consent agenda.
Your consent agenda this evening consists of the approval of the March 20th, 2017 minutes, the following annexation comprehensive plan map amendments and zoning map amendments, which include the 10750 Two Notch Road, north-south Riding Grove Road. Number 4 is 152 Island View Circle. Number 5 on the agenda is Wood Creek Farms, Two Notch Road, and east-south Old National Highway, as well as a partial, as well as east-south Old National Highway, as well as 168 Riding Grove Road, a partial, as well as partial of the tax map numbers 28900-01-11, 2900-01-14, and 2800-900-01-10. The site plan reviews consisting of 1155 Clemson Frontage Road, item number 7, 248 Harbison Boulevard, and number 8, Wood Creek B5 Phase 2, a zoning map amendment for a portion of the former Willow Street right-of-way. And that would consist of your consent agenda.
Do any commission members or guests wish to have items on the consent agenda removed and placed on the regular agenda? I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
A second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We will now proceed with the regular agenda. And prior to reading the regular agenda, I would like to add that with the size of the crowd, we have security in here tonight after the last meeting. And I don't want anyone approaching the commission with any comments going beyond that podium, unless you're asked to. If you do, I will ask security to remove you, and you will not be allowed back in. We'll now go with the regular agenda.
All right. That's going to bring us to the item number 10, which is a street renaming of Reed Street Extension. We were contacted by the Benedict Island CDC in order to rename the Reed Street Extension to the Dr. David H. Swinton Way to recognize Dr. Swinton for his years of service as the president of Benedict College. This item would be on the consent agenda, but it is required by state law to have a public hearing.
Is there, just call for a motion to approve it, right?
You can ask is whether or not there's anyone to speak in opposition or
Is there anyone
against.
here that would oppose the street name change? Call for a motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request to change Reed Street to David H. Swinton Way.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion's approved.
Item number 11 is a zoning map amendment for 3319 Millwood Avenue for the request to recommend to rezone the parcel from a planned unit development, commercial PUD, to a single-family residential development, RS2. And Mr. Cook, the zoning administrator, is here to answer any questions if you have them about this particular item.
Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman? If I may, just a reminder that this is a hearing for a rezoning request, not a site plan review. Should the applicant get the property rezoned to RS2 zoning, and then they would apply for a special exception for the Board of Zoning Appeals for athletic fields. A special exception at the Board of Zoning Appeals, should the approval be obtained for rezoning, the Board of Zoning Appeals will look at vehicle and pedestrian safety, environmental factors, aesthetics, public safety and nuisance conditions, concentration of similar uses, the character of the area based on the use proposed, is the use compatible with the surrounding properties, and is public interest served by granting of the variance or special exception. So again, this is a rezoning request based on the applicant going from PUD C to RS2. Should the Planning Commission vote up or down and City Council approves the request, it would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And again, it would have to meet the criteria that we just went over.
I have a question for you, Brian. Since we heard this matter 3 or 4 months ago that Chairman Cohn referenced,
What gives it the ability to come back to Planning Commission?
Before it went to City Council and a vote was taken, the application was withdrawn. So at that point, it ended, so it had to start again with a new application.
Through the entire process?
Yes.
Got it.
Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant here?
Yes, they are.
Okay. If you'd like to come forward, please state your name clearly before speaking.
Okay. My name is Raymond Perkins. I'm the Director of Facilities for the district, and we would like to present to you. To the members of the Planning Commission, the City of Columbia staff, community members, and the district family, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again on behalf of the district and our efforts to improve the athletic fields at Dreher High School. Based on our understanding for the various options available to us to make these changes, we must request a change of zoning from the PUD to the RS2 designation. As a district, we are primarily looking to address three concerns for this project. First, we're looking to provide adequate athletic facilities that coincide with our academic goals. It is understood that academics and athletics go hand in hand, and there exists a strong correlation between the two. By providing these fields, we hope to blend and improve the phenomenon for the overall experience of our children. Secondly, the district looks to provide facilities that are on site and will not require the added coordination efforts for transportation, scheduling with other groups and organizations to better ensure the safety and success of our students. And finally, by placing a newly installed synthetic turf at Dreher, we'll provide a playing surface that will be safe. It will have the ability to stand up to continued use, and the retention system that's placed underneath the field will help retard some of the stormwater runoff from the existing site. We have installed two of these fields within the district, and we look to install 5 more, including this one. We have been pleased with their performance and their appearance. Now, please understand and know that it is our desire to live in harmony with our neighbors, just as the good book says we should. To that end, we have made several revisions to our initial plan. We have reduced the number of seats from 900 to 750. We have eliminated the sound system. We have removed the press box. And we've even included a fence at the south end of the field between the school and the wall along Adger Road to discourage anyone from parking along Adger in hopes to getting to the field. We have left the lights, and we simply request leaving the lights in place with a requirement that they be out by 9 p.m. Maybe there are some additional things that we need to do to be more harmonious, but we are certainly working to do that. We've had several community meetings with 2 as recent as last week, and there are a number of concerns and voiced by those community members. We all understand that we have differences of opinions on just about any and everything, and this project is no different. In fact, tonight you may hear concerns about us building a stadium on the campus. It's a matter of understanding this is not so. Our stadiums are designed to seat over 5,000 people. This field will seat only 10 to 15% of that. Our stadiums are designed with over 100 bathroom fixtures. And again, on this field, it's only a fraction of that. Our stadiums have press boxes, sound systems, and locker rooms, and this field does not. Tonight, you may hear concerns about traffic. Please know that this field has a fraction of the seating, the capacity of our theater and gym. In fact, the parking spaces needed for this field is less than 190 spaces. Once we complete this construction, we will have well over 450 spaces on this project once it's completed. You may hear any number of concerns, but you should know that the district is flexible in its approach to this field, and we will continue to listen and work on this plan. We understand the tremendous responsibility that you have as a planning commission, because we too have a responsibility to the total high school experience we must afford our children. We know that an approval of this zoning request does not guarantee an approval of our plan. We understand clearly that even though we may receive a zoning change, we cannot do one thing until we receive the approval of the Board of Zoning Appeals before we proceed. We understand the steps that are required to make this change happen, and we simply ask that you review this request in the manner that it is made. It is simply that we look at the opportunity to change the zoning from a PUD to RS2. To our understanding, this is what we must do in order to take the first steps to make the change that our children need. We thank you for taking an opportunity to listen to what we say. At the appropriate time, we'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have one. I know it's been mentioned, but could you tell us what athletic teams would be using this field?
Primarily,
And let me, and what time of day?
okay. The overall use of the field will be for football practice, soccer practice. If the school would grow into a lacrosse team, we will have them to practice there. So the primary use will be practice. We will allow it to be used for JV games, middle school games, and soccer and lacrosse games. The capacity needed for those activities is much lower than for a varsity football game. We would agree with the city through a memorandum of agreement as a binding document that we would prepare that would indicate that there would be no varsity sports, football sports, on that field. Those activities would need a larger venue, and so we recognize that, so we would not include that.
What time of day would these typically take place? What time of day?
Typically, this activity would be after school, during the week. In addition, there would be classes during the day that would take place. They would use it for PE activities and things like that.
So you would have varsity soccer games?
There possibly could be varsity soccer games. Again, if it is anticipated that it is a large game, such as Flora and Dreer, that would be played at Memorial.
So you can't say for sure that all of these sporting events would be during the day. There would be some at night. I know typically B-team games are in the afternoon.
Right.
Time of year, they're completed before it gets dark. But do you have any idea of any of those being done at night?
They're typically as early in the day as possible. When we have soccer matches, we may have more than one, and so it may go beyond daylight time. So we may need lights at that point.
You mentioned the fencing along Adger. I know there's a brick wall there now. Is this in addition to that that's going to enhance
Yes.
it, height? I mean, because they're already, I think the students park on Adger now
What-
get
what-
to school.
Okay, what it does is it goes across from the school perpendicular to the fence. And so what it prevents anyone from walking around that fence and having access to the field.
What about the existing PUD?
The existing PUD, from that,
Wasn't there an agreement signed?
yes, sir, there was an agreement signed with the existing PUD. And in that PUD, there was and actually it was the clause that we were hoping to use when we initially started this, that allowed us to go back and make revisions. And we were not able to do that, and you would have to ask the staff, but we were not able to do that because we could not use the PUD anymore. It's my understanding that there are going to be changes coming out regardless of what we do, changes to how it is currently zoned.
And I asked this question at the last meeting, and I rode by again and took a look at the layout of the school. Is there not a way to put this stadium closer to Millwood Drive?
The only way that we could, you mean shift it down? We did look at that, we have looked at that. There's not enough space to accommodate doing that, but we believe that it would actually place the field more in front of you. It would push it more out, make it more visible by placing that down in that area. And also it takes away the needed vehicular traffic stacking on that side as well.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
We thank you for allowing us to speak.
Are there any other people who would like to come forward and speak on behalf of the school?
On behalf of the school?
Well, on behalf of the request from the school.
My name is Michael Burkett, and I know I've got 2 minutes, so I will be brief. A couple things. The PUD is a question, and you're going to hear it raised a lot in a little bit. Just wanted to note that before the last meeting, in the case summary that was given, the city did recommend, the planning staff did recommend this change to the residential request. I want to read you the language from the original request, from the original language that was for the document that was edited out. Specifically, the original response in the case summary was, the PUD designation was designed to facilitate large-scale mixed-use development. As this property does not meet this definition, it is appropriate to change the property zoning to align with its current uses and the future land use element of the Columbia Plan 2018. Because of this, staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend to City Council approval of the zoning of this property to RS2. Now, what ended up in the final case summary was a little bit watered down and simply said that it complies with the Columbia Plan 2018, which is where all of this is going as the PUD goes away. The role of the Planning Commission, obviously, is to address the request in light of all permitted uses, not simply one permitted use. So this is not a site plan review, as you've been reminded. And then I want to also note that the Dreher student body is 60% minority. Many of you may not have known that. We are speaking on behalf of a lot of those who don't have voices, who can't be here because their parents have jobs and they don't have the ability to travel. They don't have the ability to play sports because they're not on campus. What's interesting is that Hammond, which demonstrates as a good neighbor and has continued to be a good neighbor to Hampton Old Woodlands, has the exact same zoning classification Dreher's requested. So our request from the parents is simple: afford us the same opportunity to go to the next step with the Board of Zoning Appeals and afford these students the same opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My name is Vance Strickland. I have 3 students, 3 of my children at Dreher High School, and we're asking to have the zoning changed, to go ahead and meet what the students need. Dreher has approximately 1,200 students. If you count the feeder schools, it's around 4,000 students. These are young people that are not being allowed the opportunities that are allowed at all the other public schools in the area, and if you go outside the area, are vastly outpacing what we offer at Dreher. It's amazing that you can go to Hammond in my neighborhood, and it has RS2 zoning, and we're happy to have them and allow their students to have a stadium, and it's not a stadium. We're not putting a stadium at Dreher. We're putting some bleachers and a field, and so please take into consideration the 4,000 students that are at Dreher and the feeder schools and the opportunities you will be denying them if you do not allow or suggest that this rezoning take place. I would also like to point out that there was some question about whether or not there were community meetings held prior to the last meeting. I sat here and listened to folks say that there were not. I can assure you there were multiple community meetings held prior to us coming here before. There were 7 meetings held within the neighborhood themselves. And since that last meeting, we've had 2 additional meetings at Dreher High School. There's been ample opportunity to exchange ideas and information. We've tried to work together in good faith, come up with compromises, taking into consideration the concerns of the neighbors in the community. But the concern that seems to be left out is what the students need, what's fair and right and just for them. And to allow the individuals that go to Dreher High School to be left behind because we simply won't make a small change, which, by the way, was allowed in the PUD. Change is allowed in the PUD. And further, your staff, in their review of it, has concluded the PUD is not appropriate, and under a case, Sinkler versus the County of Charleston, we don't believe is legal. We think you know that there are some real legal issues as far as that is concerned. So tonight, we're simply asking you to do the right thing. Allow Dreher, the first step in this process, allow Dreher to be rezoned, allow the students to have the facilities that are at all the other surrounding schools, not District 1, but are being rapidly outpaced by the other areas around Dreher. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward and speak on behalf of, I guess, the Dreher? 4.
Hi, my name is Matthew Campbell. I spoke last time when I was here. I played football for Dreher High School. I played baseball, and I'm going to college to play baseball. And sports have run my life. I love them. I don't know what I do without them. Every day, I look forward to going to practice. I look forward to being with the friend group that I've made from playing sports. And especially on Friday nights, I look and yeah, school gets boring sometimes. And I sit there and I just think about what's going to happen Friday nights. But when we practice on a field that's could be wet, could be muddy, and not safe to practice on, or there's stuff going on within the school that leads us to not be able to have that opportunity to practice or play, it really affects us. And my thing is, there are so many people that don't get the opportunity to do what I did and go through high school and have a great high school career playing football, playing baseball. I played basketball JV a couple years, and it's life-changing. And it made me a better person, and it's gonna set my life out to be just the way I want it. And school, sports, and the people in my life just made that happen. And I feel like every kid in that school, every student should get the same opportunity as I have, whether it's in a PE class or playing a sport. And I feel like if they don't get that same opportunity, then I don't know, because a lot of kids go home to nothing. It happens. We see it every day. And if they get the opportunity that I have, I feel like their lives can be changed just as mine was, and can send them out to a great future. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew, where do you practice now?
We're practicing over at Memorial Stadium for baseball. And
for football?
For football, we practice back on that field back there. And it's an iffy field. It's sandy, it's rocky, it's whatever we can get out of it is pretty much what it is. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jim Sonnefeld. I'm a resident of 1502 Wyndham Road in the Heathwood area. I just want to share my rather unique position of being in the area that's mainly opposing the building, but I have 5 kids in a blended family, 2 of whom go to Dreher and Hand. So I'm in the neighborhood of Heathwood, but I have some Dreher kids. My unique position isn't really that I have kids in both zones, it's that I actually support the rezoning. Not just because my kids, one of them might be able to play on that field one day, he's a 7th grader now. As a homeowner in the area, I'm willing to actually sacrifice a small percentage, what I understand to be a small percentage of my otherwise dark and quiet nights in exchange for and because of this great benefit of these facilities than what they'll bring. They're going to bring it to a giant and growing number of student athletes. This list of beneficiaries will continue well into the future, well past when my kids are possibly going to be able to use it and past even when I'm dead and gone. And that kind of makes me feel good that there'll be a lot of kids, as mentioned, from the Dreher zone, which extends a long ways, that will benefit from this. Yeah, on some nights it will be a little noisy. On some nights there will be a rather brightened sky, but I feel it's unnecessarily selfish of me to deny this infinite number of future student athletes access to a safe and wonderful campus facility. And I'm not willing to, and I don't want to oppose it just because I can't accept a slight change to my neighborhood environment. I hear exaggerated pleas from both sides, mostly not fact-based in the last meeting, and that was upsetting, but I'll say this in closing. With the neighborhood landscape that I've grown accustomed to, will it be altered? Sure. Will the Dreher campus become more vibrant and more functional for the future? Also true. But I'm willing to accept these changes because I think it's a good thing for the overall community. And there's a great example, as was mentioned, of another relationship between Hammond School and their neighborhood. And though it's not exactly comparable, it does prove one very important point, that a lighted campus facility and its neighbors can move forward together as good partners to benefit both parties. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak against the proposed field? I have a question for staff before we start too. This is a zoning amendment, am I correct? A zoning
map amendment.
Map amendment.
Correct.
Can any restrictions be put on that?
No.
I will add, Mr. Chairman, if I might, again, if this property is rezoned to RS2, they will have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals, at which time the Board of Zoning Appeals, if they so choose to approve the request, can put conditions on that approval.
And I guess this is in your packet too, should be the last page of your packet, that it lists the table of permitted uses, so you can see that, as Mr. Cook was mentioning, the specific special exceptions are listed there that include the elementary and secondary schools.
Can I ask one follow-up question before we get into another resident? Can the ground material be changed without having a zoning change? For example, could they replace the grass fields with artificial turf without requiring a zoning change? How stringent is it in that regard?
It's a very strictly worded plan unit development. They could not change the turf. That was discussed within the PUD, as was fencing and lighting, and it was a very, very detailed
I meant specifically about the ground level, but okay.
Yeah, no, they could not change the turf as it is now within the existing PUD.
Okay, we'll proceed.
Hello, everyone, to fellow Planning Commission members and parents and students and neighborhood people. Thank you for hearing us. My name is Ruth Patterson. I live on Devereaux Road in the 3600 block. My husband and I are opposed to changing the zoning designation of the Dreher High School property from the PUD in any way. The requested change to an RS2 is inconsistent with the other adjacent properties, which on 3 of the school's sides, Adger Road, Devereaux Road, Princeton Street, Michigan Street, and Daly Street, are mostly residential single-family dwellings. Surely classing a high school as a single-family district is inappropriate under the commonly understood meaning of single-family. One of the most important features of the PUD, which our neighborhood and School District 1 agreed upon in 2003, was to site the rebuilt school well away from surrounding residences with a large perimeter of open green space as insulation. One look at the planning map School District 1 has provided shows that insulation will disappear. Details of Dreher's intended development only reinforce the inappropriateness of School District 1's plan to build athletic facilities at a school located in and surrounded by a residential neighborhood many, many blocks around it. Chiefly a JV, middle school, high school football bleachers, I guess I should call them, not a stadium, with a seating capacity of 750, with restroom and concession facilities open to the general public, with lights, and 5 or 6 tennis courts that will also be lit. These compromise plans, announced at the public meeting at Dreher on Thursday, 30 March, will still have an adverse impact on our neighborhood, from the lights, from the crowd noise, from the boisterous fans, happy or disappointed in the result of whatever game they just saw, coming and going, increased automobile traffic, unwanted parking, and litter in the yards. According to the map
We're at the time,
and direction
we're at the time limit. We're at the time limit. I'm sorry.
Okay,
We've got a lot of people that want to speak.
I would like to end by pointing out that Dreher High School to Memorial Stadium is exactly 1.9 miles and 7 minutes away. Cannot the plans to give Dreher the facilities they need be scheduled and developed for Memorial Stadium instead of this neighborhood? Please, for the sake of the surrounding neighborhood, please deny School District 1's rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sam Waters. I am the co-president with my wife, Dr. Mary Waters of the Historic Heathwood Neighborhood Association. First, I want to read to you portions of a letter that I've been given specific permission to read by a former superintendent of School District 1, Dr. Alan Coles. Here's what he said. As a lifelong educator, supporter of schools and students, and former administrator for Richland 1, I find myself in the unenviable position of not supporting the request to rezone Dreher High School property. The parents of Dreher High were so insistent on having a neighborhood school that they rejected the district's offer to find property elsewhere that would have accommodated new facilities, including athletic fields. Instead, they agreed to off-campus athletic facilities which have been provided. More to the point, Dreher parents actually refused to support the bond referendum unless Dreher was rebuilt at its present location. To now seek to wedge a stadium within this buffer violates the spirit of the agreement reached by the interested parties who approved that PUD in 2003. Nothing has changed as far as the school's neighbors are concerned, except their confidence in the district to live up to its agreement. This application, end of letter, this application before you is identical to the one you received in November. And I tell you that there is no change in the opposition of the neighborhoods that surround Dreher to this thing. In fact, rezoning Dreher to RS2, it makes it immediately a non-conforming use. And I just wonder why that's good zoning policy to make that change. Concluding with the fact that this has been heard before, and I don't know that you're going to hear any new information, and I would urge you to reaffirm the vote from December 5th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hamilton Osborne, and I'm a 1961 graduate of Dreher High School. For nearly 35 years, I have lived on Heathwood Circle, 2 blocks east of Dreher. I am here in support of the current PUD zoning of Dreher and in opposition to the proposed rezoning of Dreher to RS2. In 2003, when the current PUD zoning of Dreher was adopted, I was a member of Columbia City Council, and I voted for the PUD zoning. The school district needed the PUD zoning in order to rebuild Dreher on the existing site. The alternative, as mentioned by Mr. Waters, was to move Dreher to a new, larger site on the edge of town. I think that a site on Atlas Road was considered. In order to keep Dreher where it was, the school district agreed to accept restrictions on the use of the existing campus. In particular, the school district agreed that it would not and could not construct any athletic facilities on the open space now existing on the Dreher campus. That restriction was imposed to protect the interest of people living adjacent to or near the Dreher campus. If the PUD documents had not contained the restriction on the use of the open space, I would not have voted for the PUD, and the PUD zoning might not have passed. If the PUD zoning had not passed, Dreher could not have been rebuilt where it is today. The school district made a deliberate choice in 2003 between a new, larger campus for Dreher or the existing smaller campus with restrictions on the use of the open space. Having made that choice, the school district should not now be allowed to repudiate the restrictions to which it agreed in 2003. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hold applause.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, my name is Ned Pendarvis. I live about 6 blocks from Dreher High School. My son went to Dreher High School, graduated from there, and got an excellent education. I'm here in opposition to this zoning change. The gentleman from District 1 that spoke, I asked some questions at the meeting at Dreher about crowds at Memorial Stadium, and he dismissed them politely that we weren't going to have any athletic competition, no football games at this site that they weren't playing. Well, in 2003, he said we wouldn't be here for what we are here tonight. So they have lost all credibility as far as I'm concerned. As far as my credentials, I'm a former chairman of the Columbia Council of Neighborhoods, former chairman of the Columbia Development Corporation. And I cannot see any good coming of this. 750 people make a lot of noise. And those lights are going to be bright up and down Azure Road. So I would ask, if you indulge me for just a second, everybody here that's opposed to this, please stand.
Wait, well, we
Thank you. I wasn't supposed to do that.
But it's done.
Thank you.
Disregard that when you vote.
Commissioners, some supporters of the rezoning of Dreher believe that the South Carolina Supreme Court case of Sinkler holds that all PUDs are in South Carolina legal. Supporters of rezoning argue that the Dreher PUD C-zone needs to be removed and Dreher rezoned in order to comply with South Carolina law. The PUD C is not legally deficient. The court in Sinkler ruled that a planned development district, which is a specific type of zoning under the Planning Act, not what's under the Columbia Ordinance, was defective in that case for 2 reasons. One of which was there was no practical change in what was going on in Sinkler, and the other reason was because that it was not an innovative design, like the PUD C is in this particular context. It is widely recognized in South Carolina the Sinkler decision does not preclude the use of locally developed zones, such as the PUD C under our Columbia Code. This point, that Sinkler does not preclude specialized zones under local government zone ordinances, is raised in the 2014 Comprehensive Planning Guide for Local Governments by the Municipal Association of South Carolina. One other thing I would point out is that the prevailing party in Sinkler was the neighboring property owner who objected to the zone being put on the property. That is akin to the neighborhoods now, for the most part, who are objecting to any proposed rezoning of Dreher. I meant to introduce myself at the beginning. I'm Jeff Brooker. I live at 800 Azure, directly across from the proposed facility upgrade that would be done in a rezoning situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Gregory. I live at 812 Adger Road, next to Jeff Brooker, who just spoke. I'm opposed to the rezoning of Dreher. My neighbors on the other side also opposed the rezoning, but could not be here due to health reasons. I'm directly across from the site of the proposed facility. The distance from my property line and the Dreher property line is 70 feet. 70 feet. The height of the proposed light poles. The development of this property will will drastically affect my family life and that of my neighbors, not to mention our property values. No more quiet dinners, nor reasonable bedtimes for our children. We keep hearing for the children. What about our children and our families? The intrusive lights, the unlimited high school band noise, and the cheering fans will ruin our neighborhood. Please deny this rezoning as you did so wisely a few months ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, excuse me. I'm Jim Reed. In 2003, Dreher High School was remodeled and everyone involved agreed it would not make sense to expand use of the property in the future. There was not sufficient land area there to expand. 4 months ago, the school district requested a zoning change so that the use of the property could be expanded. You determined at that time this was not a good idea and voted against the zoning change. Now, the school district is again requesting the same zoning change. Expanded use of the property did not make sense in 2003, nor 4 months ago. The size of the property has not changed. Thus, an expanded use of the property still does not make sense. I urge you to once again vote against a request to change the zoning of this property to accommodate an expansion that clearly does not make good sense.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bob Crooks. My wife and I live on Casino Road at Adger. As you know, you've heard, in 2003 there was arduous negotiation to decide on a site plan for the new Dreher High School. After much discussion, it was decided that Dreher be oriented to Millwood Avenue so that a buffer, quote, could be created between the physical plant and the neighborhood. It is because that buffer was created that negotiations were able to be completed to the satisfaction of both sides of the table. This agreement became an integral part of the PUD, as mentioned earlier, and I have the page references. How is this buffer to be used? There was great discussion about its specific purpose, even to the point of looking well into the future. It was unanimously agreed upon at this point that the green space needed to be a true buffer between the school and the neighborhood with no competitive or organized sports. These competitive sports will be hosted on another site, verbatim. Not then, not now, not ever. As a neighborhood, we expect that agreement to be upheld. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak for this now? I know we've had a lot of opposed, but I'll get back to everyone else. Everyone will have an opportunity.
I would ask that everybody would stand and say they would support Dreher, but I left my children, they did not drive up here today, and we're not going to drive up here in this weather. We were going to pack the stands with blue and stuff. It would be unsafe to have anybody. God bless Matthew Campbell for making it up here. My name's Shep Headley. And no applause necessary, but I do love it. And I'm a 1982 graduate of Dreher High School. The little place where you see up above, kind of the little notch above Dreher High School was a part of the original, I guess, 10 acres, that we got from Heath Manning, I guess, in 1938. I played B squad football on that field. We played varsity soccer on that field. There was a baseball stadium that, I guess the right field line, went along Adger Road, and we used to hit toward those houses, as a matter of fact. Won a state championship in 1969. And we did have marching band back there. We still have marching bands today. We had a softball field on the other side, but our original property was only 10 acres. The expansion of Dreher and the property in 2003, so we could build the school and have it open by 2007, was simply so we could have a school built while school was going on. Logistics involved in that situation to try to build a new school behind the old school was a monumental and great feat. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about how far Millwood is, our Millwood campus is now from Memorial Stadium. I think 1.9 miles was said. Well, 1.1 miles away from our campus is AC Flora. And it's an unusual situation where we're being hamstrung by a neighborhood or a couple of neighborhoods that are zoned for Creighton and Flora. Why should the neighborhoods surrounding us not be zoned for Dreher and get to reap the benefits of their opposition? But if you've walked on Dreher's campus, could I ask you guys to raise your hands if you've walked on the Flora campus and seen this sports field? The day I was here, they were practicing lacrosse. I have 5 children. 2 are going to be Flora graduates, 3 are going to be Dreher graduates, and I love both schools. Please support our fair and reasonable requests. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Michael Roberts. If you follow the end of Michigan Street there, you'll run into my house. That's where that red hash line is. And my wife and I are raising a 2-year-old daughter there. So with the increased foot traffic, cars driving through, the sound from over 700 people, the way it's laid out right now, we'll have 10 times the light going into our house than what's on the field itself. I looked up what Richland One's essential characteristics of what they expect out of their students. And if the district itself lived up to these, like respect, honesty, fairness, caring, we wouldn't be here right now. I'm not against the field itself. I think you can build a field elsewhere and give that opportunity to those students. But if anyone else lived where I lived, they'd be fighting the same battle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Lita Prebixio, and this is very unplanned. But I live on South Chimney Lane. For those of you who have children that go to Hammond, Hammond's football field, soccer fields, track fields are directly in my backyard. I have football games on Friday nights when they're home games during football season. I have soccer games now. I have track events. I invite you all to my house during one of these events to see what a nuisance it is not. I would so much rather have a school in my backyard than a strip mall, than a Dunkin' Donuts, than a gas station. I have a school. Schools have children where activities take place. Again, please come to South Chimney Lane. I live at the end of the cul-de-sac. Unfortunately, I think this will all be done by next football season, but it is not a nuisance at all. It is actually quite a treat, and guess what? I can have quiet dinners. I don't have lights in my, I have blinds. You can close blinds if lights really do bother you that much. But we find it a treat, and none of my children will go to Hammond. None of my children have gone to Hammond. Again, you are welcome any night.
My name is Rob Turner. I live on 1008 Princeton Street, and I live 2 doors down from Michael Roberts, who spoke earlier. And we are right on the wall of where Michigan Street connects to Princeton Street. And we talk about the buffer zone that is there now. Essentially, from the drawings that we're looking at of the new stadium proposal, there's no buffer zone. And so if this proposal is accepted, if there is building, I invite y'all to come to our house and to see how close we are going to be to the back of the end zone, to the stadium lights. Somebody mentioned 70 feet. There's going to be a brick wall that separates our houses from the back of the end zone. And so we're concerned about that. It's a unique high school in the middle of a beautiful city under the shadow of a beautiful Shandon Methodist Church, and there were certain compromises that were agreed upon and understood in 2003. If you want to have a high school there in this area, with the same atmosphere, then these are the conditions. One thing, it's not only for the students, it is a school in the community, and just, it is a community space where we live as part of, on Princeton Street, as part of the National Historic District. And this is no way, we see the division in the room, this is no way to go forward positively. And so I speak strongly against the proposal to rezone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I spoke with y'all the last time we were here. My name is Sheila McCoy. I live at 824 Adger Road, if you'd like to know where that is. I'm right across diagonally from Dreher High School. I'd like to mention, I appreciate the coach saying it was in 1982. My 3 children all graduated from Dreher, as I told you before. But I'd like to also let you know that April 1st, April Fool's Day of all times, I was out in my yard to work, do some housework and do some cleaning. At 8 o'clock in the morning, a huge sound came from Dreher. So much so it rattled my wife awake. I walked across. They were having an event that was very nice, a lot of young people doing lacrosse, whatever they would like to do, but the sound was atrocious. I respectfully asked a gentleman named Beckley, I did not get his last name, to just turn it down, please, and respect the neighborhood. And he did so. You could still hear it, but it was not shaking my house. Now, Dreher and Richland District 1 is asking us to trust them. Mr. Perkins made several notes to you about what they thought they could do if they got to the Board of Appeals. I'd like it not even to get there. I am a stage 4 cancer survivor, gentlemen. I have limited time on this world. I will tell you that very frankly. I don't like to bring that up for sympathy. I'm just letting you know what my quality of life may be. I am not wanting you to vote on this for sympathy. I want you to understand that my wife lived there and we lived there since 1992. You may have seen our picture in the paper. We live and we have our grandson there. I'd ask for you to think about our quality of life. After they build 70-foot towers of light, that will be like a morning sun to me. And they told me that they didn't anticipate playing until past 10. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
My name's Frank Hart. I live on Albion Road, and I've been there for, I looked it up today, 23 years. In my time in the Heathwood neighborhood, we've been fighting to save our neighborhood. Once with the church, which is right there on the corner, that's also a PUD-C. We lost 4 or 5 lots that were residential property there. And, we went, we're okay. We got through that. Then we went forward with this PUD-C in 2003, and we lost like 25 lots up there at the top. That whole street was wiped out. So you see this blob of blue taking over the neighborhood. It's had a huge impact, but we got through the PUD-C. We worked on that. We had our restrictions and what we thought would be
held in forever. But now here we are back again, fighting the same battle again. And now we're going to have noise and lights and traffic and all those things that we're trying to protect the neighborhood from. So I would ask you not to grant the RS2 zoning.
My name is Foster Hazel, and I spoke last time. I live at 827 Adger Road, which is that in the corner there. So my yard borders Dreher on the back and the side. The slides that have been made public, I believe, they never have shown the actual residences, but obviously you can see it there for some type of perspective. I bought my home this past August with my wife, and I bought it with I had never in my dreams thought there was a possibility, a mere remote possibility you would have something like this put on that property, and primarily because, first off, the eye test doesn't really work, but I do understand that by definition, because I went to Dreher, Mr. Nance would always use that term, which was always so, really hit home with me, but I relied on the PUD, and I also relied on the fact that in Dreher's long, outstanding, almost 80-year history, it has never had organized sports at night with lights. I'm a huge sport proponent of Dreher, and so is this neighborhood. I could be wrong, but I believe my family has more Dreher graduates than any other family in this town. 17 of my family members are Dreher graduates. We're proud Dreher graduates. My brother, sister, and I each lived in the walk zone and chose to leave our friends from Brennan and Creighton and go to Dreher. I got a fantastic education. I was on the golf team. I was on the soccer team. My brother played football. My sister played tennis. I have 2 young sons. My oldest is 22 months old. My youngest is 6 months old. And I bought this home with this specific intent that they would have the opportunity to go to Dreher like I did and have the experience, the great, wonderful experience that I did. But I can say unequivocally that I knew that Dreher could shoehorn a stadium into that property, I unequivocally would not have purchased that home. The proposed lights, as we've heard about, are going to be 7 feet tall, and what I've been told is that they're going to be 10 feet from my property. There's no way to say that I won't see massive light illumination into my yard, my home, my young son's bedroom. You've heard about the noise pollution. My fear is that my sons will never be able to sleep. They go to bed at 7 p.m. And of course, the stands, you'll have people staring directly into my backyard. And so any notion of privacy I currently have will be destroyed. It will be devastating to my family, but also I'm not the only one. You've heard from Michael Roberts, you heard from Rob Turner. There are a lot of young families that have moved into this neighborhood because of Dreher. And I moved in specifically so my kids could go to Dreher. I appreciate your letting me talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Martha Fowler. I live in Melrose Heights. My grandparents bought my house in 1941. So all my uncles went to Dreher. My children went to Dreher. They went to school with Foster. And they all turned out really good. I'm pretty proud of my babies. The thing that I think speaks volumes, and I don't know whether Mr. Fellows has this picture or not, but this is what they showed us at the meeting on Thursday night of exactly where the school, the proposed athletic fields are next to the property line. And I don't have very long fingernails, but they don't reach. It's really tiny. And it just doesn't make any sense. I want these kids. I have worked with children since my first job when I was 16 years old. I've, been an educator at Educational Television for 32 years. I still work with the youth, and I'm a part-time employee for ESPN. I love sports. I think it's great, but I don't know that these fields are that they're asking for them in the right place. Surely there is a safer, more conducive place to have these fields. I asked them at the meeting the other night, have you explored working out something with Epworth Children's Home, or with now Carolina Children's Home, which is owned by Epworth, or Richland Mall? They told us Thursday night that this campus, these sports facilities, are going to be used by Creighton and by Hand and by Dreher, which is great, but they said there's no room at Creighton and there's no room at Hand. I don't think there's really room at Dreer, but I bet there's room in Columbia for a first-class sports facility that these kids have a right to have, and I want them to have it. I'm just not sure that this is the space. May I hand this to y'all?
You may.
Okay.
Give it to Mr. Phillips.
Thank you. It just, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Bruton. I live at 3211 Michigan Street, which, as you know, is located directly behind the existing tennis courts. My front yard is about 40 or 50 feet to Dreer's campus. I bought my property last year with the expectation that I would live there for the indefinite future. Michigan Street is comprised of mostly small, affordable houses for young families, and I note all that with the disclaimer that had I known about this rezoning plan or proposal, I would have never bought that house. And if the rezoning proposal is ultimately adopted, I will strongly consider selling my house, most likely for a net loss. I think the residents of Michigan and of Princeton are rightfully concerned about the detrimental impact that the rezoning plan will have on their quality of life. And finally, I'd like the record to reflect that both my mother and my sister played tennis at Dreer, and my family has been a supporter of Dreer athletics over the years. So I respectfully request that you vote against the rezoning plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for having us and hearing this all again. My name is Rox Pollard. I live at 2 Heathwood Circle. Some of these folks that have already spoken. And I think that I know I speak for myself, and I think for all of us, that the value of co-curricular athletics is certainly not what this conversation is about. I don't think anybody argues or doubts that that is very important, particularly that young man who spoke. He did an eloquent job of doing so. And I'm not going to add to all these wonderful comments that have been made, but I am in commercial real estate, and specifically I deal in retail commercial real estate, which is shopping centers. So I know a little bit about places of assembly and things like lighting. And there's some very important things that came out of the meeting Thursday night that are very problematic that have already been mentioned. A standard shopping center light pole is about 30 or 35 feet high, and there's tremendous pressure in the zoning world to contain that lighting. These lights are proposed to be 70 feet tall. That's about 20 feet taller than this building. And there is no way as directionally perfect as those lights can be that they're not going to create a massive light footprint that's going to be very disturbing in that neighborhood. The same can be said for the noise that comes out of there. I know they say there's not going to be a PA system. They're talking about this facility being used for sporting contests 85 times a year. That's about every other day during the school year. I have never been to a sporting event of this magnitude that didn't have a PA system. So it may not have one at this time, but my guess is that'll come, particularly in light of this sort of horse trading that's going on with the PUD that's already in place. Same can be said for the tennis courts. My heart goes out to those people in Michigan and Princeton. I think that in activating this, that the city would have constructively condemned some of these properties by eminent domain in terms of price reduction that will come to those residential properties, to include possibly my own. So it's not a matter of co-curricular value of education, of athletics and education at all, but is a practical matter of context, and this facility simply doesn't fit into the context of this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Fred Easley. I'm the president of the Melrose Neighborhood Association. We're comprised of 3 neighborhoods: Fairview, Melrose Heights, and Oaklawn. We are a National Historic Designated Neighborhood. We received that designation back in November of last year, as well as a City of Columbia Designated Historic Preservation District, which includes Michigan, Princeton, Maiden Lane, and all of those areas back through there. We have approximately 816 buildings, of which 607 are contributing properties for historic designation. We have 185 that are non-contributing, and then 24 that are non-contributing structures. The houses, and from the folks that you've heard speak this evening, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Foster, all of these others, these are contributing properties that are, I'm sorry, not Mr. Robert, Mr. Foster, Rob. Those are contributing properties to the National Historic Register. We are registered with the National Park Service. These are historic homes, and that plays into the character within the neighborhood. And that is one of the reasons why we went through this process back in 2003. So none of this is new news. You've all heard this, but the National Historic Designation is new. I did not get a chance to mention that at the meeting back that we had, I guess it was 2-3 months ago. So I missed that because we ran out of time. There were a lot of people here. But we do have National Historic Designation as well. So I want to make you aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Pamela Melton. My husband and I have lived at 747 Albion Road, a block from Dreher High School, since 1998. So we were part of the process that resulted in the PUD that allowed the current high school building to be built. Our neighborhood is very old, much older than I am, although it's hard to believe, predating the existence of Dreher, and has seen many changes in the course of its more than 100 years. When we moved into our house, our sons were in elementary and middle school. There were lots of children their age on the street. One of our sons went to Dreher, and the other went to AC Flora. As it will happen, those children, including our sons, grew up and left. But in the last several years, young families have begun moving back into the neighborhood, and we love seeing and hearing the children around us again. Many of these children could and likely would go to Dreher. Neighborhoods aren't just streets and houses. Neighborhoods are people. The people who live near Dreher aren't isolated ivory tower residents. We're your neighbors. We're your friends. We work with you. We go to church with you. We play in city sports leagues with you. We volunteer with you. My husband and I don't oppose the rezoning request because we hate Dreher or don't want students to have opportunities. We oppose the rezoning because the changes contemplated by the school district would permanently and irrevocably damage our home, the place where we raise our family, places that hold our memories. So we respectfully ask you not to sacrifice our neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods.
Thank you. Are there any other guests who would like to come forward?
Mr. Chairman, members, my name is Wilmot Irvin, and my wife Jeannie and I live on Albion Road, very near some of the others who have spoken tonight, along with our 9-year-old son who lives there with us. I'm also a proud alumnus of Dreher. My brother and I went to Dreher back in the 60s. I graduated in 1968. I am not going to repeat what's already been said. I strongly agree with all that was said about the problems that are going to result to the quality of life there. But I wanted to say this. When my wife and I decided to locate into this neighborhood, the facilities expansion was already underway at Dreher. And of course, we had a huge interest in knowing what that was going to be if we were going to buy a home, as we did, a block away from Dreher High School. We discussed the impact of what was going on and what we understood to be the PUD with a number of folks. I'm sure I probably talked with Hamilton Osborne, one of my neighbors, and with others. And we came away from that as that expansion of Dreher was just about completed, with the understanding that there had been an agreement reached, which is what I understand to be this PUD, and that the school and the school district had cast their lot into the PUD, and that there would be no further substantial alterations going forward. On the strength of that, based on our understanding of what had taken place just a few years before, we paid a full and a fair price for our home. We're invested there. And I'm very concerned that what is being proposed here is going to result in a diminution of my property value, of my neighbor's property values. I don't know how it will affect people who live 4 or 5 blocks away and down the hill and further towards Trenton. But we are very concerned that this is going to happen. But we cast our lot too when we bought the property, and I urge you to reject the request.
I'd like at this time maybe to have one more from each side. You come forward. Go ahead. 2 more. 2 more.
Good evening. My name's Charles Reed. I didn't plan to speak tonight, and I promise you that I will be very brief. We've had 9 meetings during this process. 9. 2 in the last week, 7 before your meeting back in December. I attended 8 of those 9 meetings. And I've got to say, I've actually enjoyed getting to know a lot of the people that I didn't know previously in the surrounding neighborhood. We've had differences, but we've had good conversations. We've been very forthright in many ways. But there have been 9 meetings. We've known about this process. There's going to be disagreement. I know that. We are willing to work to try to reach a compromise. You have before you a decision to make on whether or not you will make a recommendation to City Council about this application. I think I know where you're probably going to go as a majority. But we are willing to work and continue to work with the community to try to reach a compromise for everyone, that maybe everyone can give a little bit here. And finally, I want to say this. I live directly behind Hammond School. My backyard backs up on Hammond's baseball field. Their lights are less than less than 90 feet from my back door, probably less than 60 feet from the back part of my property. People are constantly asking to buy into my neighborhood. I don't think the lights have hurt my property value at all. As a matter of fact, Hammond had a baseball game this past week, and I'll close on this. Had a baseball game this past week. I let my dog out at 10:30 at night to use the bathroom. I did not know the game was in extra innings until I went outside the back door. And there were probably 100 or more people back there at 10:30 at night. I know you've got concerns, and I understand them. I really do. But please, if this goes forward, don't just shut us off. Try to work with us a little bit. We might be able to reach a compromise because I think I understand some of your concerns. So please, I'll try if you'll try.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Barksdale. I live 2 blocks from Dreher High School. The school district is presenting this zoning change request as a minor request. They're saying, just give us this RS2 change, and then we'll work out the details, we'll work out the compromise before we go to Boza. That approach is completely backwards. The neighborhood has received absolutely nothing in writing as to what the school district wants other than a sheet of paper that shows the respective fields there. They have made no attempt to negotiate anything with anyone. I attended a meeting last week. The school district simply presented their side. There was not one person who attended who supported their request or even their site plan. They've given us no assurances. Y'all have got to please turn this down until the school board can come back to you with some obvious negotiated arrangement with the neighborhood. It's too late if y'all let it get to Boza. You've got to make the decision as you did back in December, which was very wise, which is to turn this down There is a commitment to the PUD arrangement. You do not need to change it. Please vote against it. Thank you.
Are there any other guests who would like to come forward? Okay, before we vote, I would like to commend everyone in this room for the way they acted tonight. It was, your information was very helpful, and I can feel it for both sides. We're humans. We do this on a voluntary basis. We spend a lot of time trying to go over the rules and the regulations to make our city a better place to live. So I would like everyone to know that these commissioners are doing what the rules and the laws are explained to us and told us what to do. With that, if there are no other questions of staff or anyone, I'd like to call for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we deny the request to rezone the parcel from PUDC to RS2.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is denied. The motion's approved. I'm sorry. The motion's approved, the number's denied. Yes. Okay. We are still in session. We are still in session. Motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second. Bring the motion up.
I move to adjourn. Second. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Can't hear shit. Don't.
Thank y'all very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.